All right, guys, we're going to be carrying on with our knowledge of the periodic tables by taking a look at some other groups that we can see. So yesterday we learned about how the periodic table is organized into metals, nonmetals, and metalloids. Today we're going to learn about some more specific groups. So I would like you to hopefully print off this worksheet here at home because we are going to be filling this in as we go through our PowerPoint presentation. So again, you're going to print off this worksheet as well as, of course, your classification of elements worksheet that you partially filled in yesterday. And then I'd like you to bring up this PowerPoint, or you can just follow along in the video. So I'm just going to be taking a look here. So again, we're looking at different families on the periodic table today. So you can complete your classification of elements handout. So yesterday we made it up to this point. So we learned that the elements can be divided into three main groups. So we have metals, metalloids, and nonmetals. And we're going to be dividing these even into smaller categories today. So for the metals, we're going to be learning about the alkali metals, the alkaline earth metals, transition metals, and then the rest of them that are left over, which are grouped into something called other metals. For the nonmetals, we're going to be learning about the halogens, the noble gases, hydrogen, which again is one of the nonmetals that's put into a group on its own, and then the leftovers, which we would call the other nonmetals. So you can pause this video right now and finish copying this into your worksheet. So here you can see a periodic table that has been divided into those categories based on color. So I just want to point out these main groups. So I'm going to start with our metals. Now the metals way over here at the left, which are in group 1, are our alkali metals. And our alkali metals, if you go back to your Bohr-Rutherford diagram sheet, you can see that all the alkali metals have one valence electron. So I'm just going to write the valence electrons down here. You can add it into your sheet too. Sorry, it's hard to write with this pen. So valence electrons. So these guys all have one valence electron, the alkali metals. And that causes them to behave in a certain way, all of the elements in that group. And again, when I say group, you can see here at the top that each column on the periodic table is a group. So we have group 1 and 2, which are part of what we call our main group elements. So you can see that the periodic table has these tall columns and then the short ones. So the ones that are tall here, and I'm just going to jot this down at the top, this guy is a main group, or these two are main group elements. And then if we skip all the way over here to 13 through 18, these are also sometimes called our main groups. Sometimes they're called representative elements. So I'm just going to write this down. You guys can jot this down as well on your worksheet. Okay, so those are groups 1 and 2 and 13 through 18. And these guys here in the middle, groups 3 through to 12, these guys are sometimes called our transition metals. And you can see most of our worksheets that we've been doing, we've been focusing on the main group. Transition metals are kind of funny. Sometimes they don't always follow the rules that we see for the main group elements. So for the most part, we'll be focusing on the main groups, but it is good to know the difference between the two. All right, carrying on with our groups, we have our alkali metals. The next to those here in group 2 are our alkaline earth metals. In here it just says alkaline metals, but sometimes they're called the alkaline earth metals, and that's what it says on your sheet. All the elements in this column here have 2 valence electrons. Okay. All right, skipping over, again, you can see our transition metals are here in the center. Transition metals tend to have various valence electrons, so we're not even going to worry about those guys. Within those transition metals, we have our lanthanides and our actinides. These are sometimes called our rare earth elements. All right, I'm going to just quickly talk about our other metals. So yesterday we learned that, of course, our metalloids are our nice little staircase that kind of help divide our metals from our non-metals. So all the ones here that are in gray, these are sometimes just called our other metals. They don't have a specific name. All right, I'm going to quickly talk about our non-metals. So I'm going to start at the very end here. So these guys are called our noble gases. And again, they're usually gases, obviously based on their name. And if you took a look, besides helium, which has 2 valence electrons, the rest of them all have 8. Next to our noble gases, the ones in red here are called our halogens. Again, these are all non-metals, and these guys all have 7 valence electrons. And then up here in the corner here are these white ones here are just our other non-metals as well as hydrogen. Sometimes hydrogen is put into its own group. And sometimes it's not. It depends on which periodic table you're looking at. So those are just the other nonmetals that don't have a specific name. Now, I am going to point out that all of the groups, even though that it's made up of our metalloids, we have 1 metal and a couple nonmetals, all the elements in this main group have 6 valence electrons. All the elements in this group have 5. These guys have 4. And these guys have 3. So you can see a nice pattern here. And again, periodic table has lots of patterns. So again, starting over here on the left-hand side with our metals, 1 valence electron for all of these elements, 2 valence electrons. Again, we're going to skip over these transition metals. These main group elements all have 3 valence electrons, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So no matter what, if I point at an element, for example, calcium, we know it has 2 valence electrons. Germanium, number 32, has 4 valence electrons. Bromine here, number 35, has 7 valence electrons. So it doesn't matter where we point on the periodic table for those main group elements, we'll be able to tell how many valence electrons it has. Remember, valence electrons are those electrons that are in the outer shell of the atom. And they're very important. We'll be learning a little bit more about those later on. All right, so once you're done coloring in your periodic table, on your worksheet, you're going to be using your textbook as well as the internet to fill in the properties of those elements as well as a few examples. So please continue to fill that in. And when you're done, you're going to be reading again pages 220 to 222 in your textbook, which you've probably already done to complete that table. And you're going to finish questions number 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10 on page 225. All right, take care, everyone.